time for Two Guys and a Goalie with Dustin Nielson, Matt Kassian, and the goalie, Joaquin Gage.
All right, 12:05 on Two Guys and a Goalie. Thank you very much for being here. Cass is in that massive spotlight again. You love to see it. It is Two Guys and a Goalie presented to you by GS Construction. If you are looking for work, the Sandman and GS Construction are hiring right now. You can go to their website or check out their page on Indeed.ca as well. No shortage of things to discuss today around the Edmonton Oilers as they game day against Alexander Ovechkin and the Washington Capitals. Connor McDavid obviously won't be there. Cass, we missed you last week, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing good. So it was, crazy week because I was in Ohio and it was snowy and cold and a lot of sitting. I think I sat like between planes and vehicles over the course of 3 days. I think I was sitting for average 12 hours a day, 13 hours a day, like in confined sitting where it's not like you could stand up and move for a few minutes. So my back and my hips are still feeling a little bit, boys, but I'm good. I'm here. I'm back. I'm ready to roll. Excited to be back in the swing of things on the Two Guys and a Goalie podcast presented by GS Construction.
DEL is in the chat. Says, Cass, are you in a tanning bed right now?
Yeah, just you know what? Trying to get my glow on. Fellas.
Yeah, I do like the idea of you being so busy that you do have to do the show in a tanning bed because you can't even get sunlight anymore.
Yeah, I just want you with those little glasses on.
That would be great. You should do one of those. Have you guys ever been in a tanning bed?
Oh yeah,
really?
Yeah, I did it for a while there. It made me feel better. Just at around this time of year, I would go
just kind of like warm your whole body up.
Yeah. So and I'd of course I would kind of get dark a little quicker. And then do they have tanning salons anymore? I don't even see them much anymore. But you could get the accelerant, so you put that stuff on, and I swear you look like Ross from Friends coming out of there. You're getting 8s on both sides.
I could try to turn here again. I'm just trying to keep a balance of where we are, and maybe this will be a little better over here. Maybe I can do this over here.
Looks like you're
that's a little bit better. A little bit better.
Looks like you're auditioning for the next criminal mastermind in Batman as Two-Face there. Okay.
I can think this is such a lame reference that nobody's going to get, but I don't know. It's on TV all the time. The next episode of Lone Star 911, when the comet is flying down towards the Earth. I don't know how they're going to get out of it. It's a TV show. I don't know but it looks like there's a comet flying towards Cass's head right now.
They all die. They don't get out of it. They all die.
We were talking about the other day because Zach brought in a comic book of the show The Dinosaurs.
Oh,
remember how that show ended?
Yeah, not good.
Oh, that was sad.
Yeah.
That was sad. Like the comet hit, the meteor hit, and then it was just you looked out the window and it was just like the ash coming down. And you're like, oh man, what a way to go!
It's just like The Sopranos. Yeah, turn black. Right, screen just goes black. That's over.
I guess it's kind of like you knew how the Titanic was going to end, but you still watched it. You kind of knew how the dinosaurs were going to end.
Because I knew how it was going to end. I mean, I knew how. I still have never watched the Titanic from front to back.
Movie?
Really?
Never watched the whole thing. I know how it ends. I'm like, this is boring.
It's good though. The story's good.
It's a pretty well done movie.
Yeah. Anything you got to watch. It's a tribute to Bill Paxton. You got to watch a Bill Paxton movies.
All right, we've got lots to get to here on Two Guys and a Goalie today. Let's see. We got Hire It or Fire It coming up. Lots of Washington and Edmonton questions in the Hire It or Fire It. Connor McDavid will not play today. He is suspended for 3 games. I know you were on the show this morning talking about it. I've talked about it. I've tweeted about it. And Cass, what say you on this 3 games for Connor McDavid?
I mean, I thought he was just going to get a fine. So
you thought it was just going to be a fine? Not even a game?
Fine. Like they want to see play. Yeah.
You must have been really surprised by the 3 then.
Yeah, the 3. Well, I wouldn't have been shocked by like a 1. I mean, if you look at like what Rempe has got for repeatedly, like in the same season doing crazy things, I'm like 3 games seems a little heavy-handed. They're obviously trying to send a message. They're kind of throwing the book at him in a lot of ways. But I kind of side with Corey Perry on this one, and I loved his comments. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to unpack them yet.
I got the one comment that's created a bit of a stir, but go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with him. It's so many of the things where it's like, yeah, if you don't police, your job as referees and official in the safety department, your job is to police, to protect, enforce. And if you're not going to do it, at some point, players are going to take it into their own hands. And that's what we saw with Connor McDavid, and a boiling over of frustration. And yeah, I mean, Perry sees it. The entire team sees it. People outside this market are probably going to be like, "Ooh, what a whining crybaby." But it's like, well, the reality is the guy probably could draw another 3 or 4 calls a night that he doesn't get. And that's just going to build up over time and eventual frustration. Now, you shouldn't have cross-checked him. I'll say that. Like, it was bad. It was intent. But I understand how he got to that point, and I agree in a lot of ways with Corey Perry.
Well, what I just find a little bit confusing is the protecting of players. Like, we had Jamie McClendon on, and who do we have on? I can't remember who else we had on this week, but they were talking about, it's probably the easiest era to play in for star players in the National Hockey League right now. And it's not like they have to be looking over the middle of the ice when they come through and they're going to get blown up. So, like, I think the issue, like, we're talking about protecting players, and I guess they're somewhat tied in. It's just funny to me how the conversation has become protecting star players when a star player just cross-checked a non-star player in the face. Right. Like, I think star players are very well protected. Why did he do that? But that's just because. Why did he do that? But that's because of officiating shit. It's hooking and holding. Right. That's not a protecting the players thing to me. That's a calling the game the way it should be. I don't think Connor McDavid has to fear for his safety in the National Hockey League in 2025.
Right. So it depends on how we're defining the word protection, right? Because we're not just defining it as like just getting hurt, right? Not just getting axed, although we have seen instances, if we go back to Pietrangelo and the slash on Draisaitl, where the league hasn't done a good job of physically protecting him. It's protecting his ability to play the game.
Okay,
it's protecting his ability to win.
Then we should say that, like, protect their ability to play the game they want. To me, it's like
all-encompassing term.
It's a dangerous thing.
But there's a protection issue to it as well from an injury standpoint. If you think about moving at high speeds and getting tripped, if you think about moving at high speeds and getting hooked, if you think of you're trying to do something and someone's grabbing your arm and now it's twisting and contorting your body in a way where there's higher potential for that injury. And so I think it's a both. Like, when I think of protection, I think of the physical protection, not getting injured, but then and not having to suffer abuse. But then there's an element of that as well. Little slashes, little chips, sticks getting in between your legs, tripping you, falling, right? Because that can cause injury. But then there's the protection of your ability to play the game at the level that you can and that you do play. So it's a both. So when I use the phrase protection and protecting the star players and protecting the players, that's what I'm talking about. And I think a lot of people are talking about that too, where it's like, it's not just physically, like the conversation, and maybe some people mean it that way, but it's not about just physically protecting them. It's about protecting your product, the quality of the product, protecting what these players are able to do and enabling them to do what they can and what they should be able to do. And a large part of that is, as you mentioned, the officiating is garbage and they don't call the penalties.
Yeah, I guess I view it as protecting the integrity of the game so the high-skilled players can play the way that you want to see them play. Right? Like, that's the conversation I think that should probably be. Well, the conversation that be coming out, like, Connor McDavid cross-checked somebody in the head. And we're turning this around that, like, oh, he's hooked and held too much, which I get, but that doesn't mean you can go cross-check somebody in the head because of it. Like,
no, and he shouldn't have, right, guys?
And he's getting suspended for it, right? Like,
look, there's been a few instances over the last few weeks. There was, and if we're talking about protecting players, okay, just protection, the intent to injure a player, it's a difference between a kind of an attempt to injure a player or, hooking a guy through the neutral zone. You're not trying to hurt him in that point. You're trying to slow him down and things like that. The slew foot with Kempe should have been way more than that. That was a dangerous play on Connor McDavid. The Hartman kick on Draisaitl in Minnesota, that should have been much more severe penalty for that. And I'm kind of with you, Cass, where I thought, wow, 3 games, that's a lot. But then they listed all of Connor's his record, so does his NHL record of things that he's done, and it aligns with a lot of other players. When they get to that point, it becomes a 3-game suspension. And I really have no problem with what Conor Garland did in that point. I thought it was brilliant. And I think someone else said it on here. If Arvidsson does that to Nikita Kucherov at the end of a game, we're saying, great job, Daniel. That was a way to take their best player out.
They're not going to call you on it. You might as well do it.
And the people the refs couldn't call a penalty because the Oilers had the puck the whole time. Yes, it was a penalty, but I think there's a huge difference between an intent to injure and making it difficult on the other team's star players to perform. But saying that again, Dusty, if they were to actually call the rule book, Connor McDavid would draw at least 3 to 4 penalties a game, and they don't call it just because. And there's I don't know, was it last year? I believe it was last year. Talking to someone, they said the ref came to the bench. Maybe you even said this, Cass, and you talked to the guy, and he said, "Look, I can't call everything on that guy," and that's what the ref said. So. Reffing in the NHL is terrible. It's just the way it is. It's not going to get any better. They completely run the game how they see fit. And at certain times, they use the rule book, and depending on how the game's going, they throw it completely out the window.
Nielson, Cass, and Gage are with you on the show here today. Cass, we were asking the question this morning, I think another part of it is because the timing of the game. If the refs are watching what's going on with Garland and McDavid 10 minutes into the first, you think there's a penalty there?
I don't know. That's the scary question.
I would hope there is, because I look at it and go, we always hear all the time, well, the whistles have been put away, and it kind of drives me crazy just as a hockey fan watching it that the game is called differently in the final 60 seconds than it is for the rest of the game. You know what I mean? And I know it's kind of the way it's always been, but I mean, I don't know if you should get away with that type of stuff just because of the timing of the game. You know, it messes with the integrity of the product. Even that's what we're protecting here. Is that not what we said we're supposed to protect? Well, then call a bloody penalty even in overtime. Well, you can't call that. It's overtime. Yeah. No, this is the game. The game shouldn't change in overtime to regular season. If we're going to sit here and bitch about protecting the integrity of the game and allowing the players to do it, then the officials have to call the game all the time. And if it goes against the Oilers in overtime, you're like, that shouldn't be a penalty. It's a penalty. It's a penalty. It hasn't been that way in a long time. I'm not sure it ever was. I don't think it ever will get there, but that's the problem that we face. I mean, that's what happens.
I don't know why refs don't just call penalties all the time, according to the rules, because it's not like they have to get up and explain themselves afterwards.
Call it and go away.
Go home. Yeah, no one's going to remember you. And it's funny because when you get to the playoffs and you get to overtime, the only way that a penalty is usually called is if it really takes a goal away or a scoring chance. Other than that, it's prison rules, which it's just the way it is. They'll never change.
No. Cass, you think they should change some of that stuff? I mean, you played, you grinded out there. Would you like to see them change that, or do you want it to be when it gets to the playoffs is different and late in a game is different and that type of thing?
No, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be.
NBA's not.
It should be, and it should be if it's 5-on-4. That's another situation where they'll let things go because they don't want to put a team down 5-on-3. But it should be a penalty is a penalty. Call the penalties. Call the penalties. You don't just Gage, you just mentioned it, the NBA. You're going to call that foul even if it's late in the game. You got to call the foul. Right. In football, they miss some too. Look at we've seen the last couple of weeks some missed football calls where the officials have missed some as well. And it's going to happen, but it just happens way more frequently in the NHL that they don't call the rules, they call the game. And that to me, it's frustrating. It's annoying. Call the penalties. Don't try to have it generally kind of even, which a lot of them try to do between the teams. Where it's if there's a 1 or 2 penalty difference, we're okay. That no one will be upset with us. it hurts the integrity of the product to me, and it's not good. So I would like them to just call it and call the rule book and call it the same. But as of right now, it's just, and it hasn't been for years and years and years. I mean, this is not something brand new, as already discussed.
But it likes to pop its angry head every once in a while, doesn't it? Like it just, Cass, did you view Myers different than McDavid? Like, were you okay that they both got 3, or did you think it was a different situation? McDavid more engaged, and Myers just kind of looking at Bouchard and popping him.
Well, I'm not. I did say, and again, I thought they were just going to both get fined. So I was drastically wrong. But I figured whatever was going to happen, it was going to be the same for both of them, because both same plays, both at the same time. And I get they were different, and I understand. And we didn't really see. Apparently there was a slash Bouchard on Myers leading into it. And Myers said, he meant to hit him across the chest, not as high as he did. And he's like 6'10". So
I do love that defense. Like, totally didn't mean to.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Well, he meant to cross check him, just not in the face.
Yeah. He's just in the chest.
And you know what, Myers, I know Tyler. I would believe him. Like, he probably didn't, but you did hit him in the face. So it's a suspension for both. As much as you want to view them differently, you're not. Like, and they were different in that, Conor and Gage, we'll call it the rage of passion or passionate rage or whatever you want to call it, like where he's being held and it's more reactive, where Myers is a little bit more calculated, as it were, with the player just skating towards them. They're both deserving of suspension. Now, if a slash on Bouchard was missed or by Bouchard to Myers, well, yeah, that should have been called too. Right, like there's another one that they didn't see if that indeed happened.
I thought the Myers one was a little more vicious. Just the whole sequence was kind of funny when you look at it. A guy takes his mouth guard out and then gets popped in the face with a Sherwood. That was pretty funny. And I thought that McDavid's was vicious too, but the side of the head with the helmet on, whatever. That Myers is straight to the chops. But again, like you said, they're both 3 games. When they explained the reasoning behind it, the NHL Department of Safety or whatever they call
on their videos,
like that's what they did. They went through the past history and what he got suspended for, this. So, and both guys, although Myers has quite a few more games, were quite similar in their past fines or suspensions. So I get that why it's both 3 games. I'm just sad it wasn't 1 for both, because it would be fun to have both of them in the lineup on Thursday.
I still don't know why Bouchard took his mouth guard out as he was skating towards Myers.
What did he want to say to him that bad? Like, geez.
Must have had something urgent that he wanted to pass. I think he was probably going to say, I'm sorry about the slash. Boom. Done. That was a tough one.
Apologize.
Yeah. He quickly take out the mouth guard to apologize. He gets chopped right in the face. Cass, it's interesting when things like this pop up because of the role that you played in the National Hockey League. And we had some people asking us today, like, are the Oilers too soft? Is this like something? Is this why something like this happens? Now, I made the comparison this morning that the Oilers could have Matt Rempe on the bench, and it's not going to change what Conor Garland did in the final 20 seconds, interfering with Connor McDavid in the neutral zone. So, I mean, does the lack of, the team, I would say if you had a meter here and it was like totally soft over here and rock hard over here, the Oilers are hovering a little bit past middle, maybe towards soft a little bit. But like, I don't think that changes anything that happened on Saturday night. Do you?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't change Conor Garland holding him and interfering with him and trying to win hockey. It's not going to. Now, what having guys in the lineup that can do that, or Rempe or whoever it is, like, it can put the fear of God in Conor Garland for next time you play, that you could get grabbed, right? And that there's going to be repercussions. So it's a long-term deterrent, not a short-term deterrent, that sort of thing. But it doesn't. That's not the game anymore. Like, it's not. It's not a part of it. And I don't think it has to be a part of it. It's fine that the NHL has gone that way. But from the little chippiness that you don't always see, that doesn't always get called, the little slashes, the little plays, it can reduce or could reduce that sort of stuff. But yeah, it doesn't, you're right. It doesn't change that. And I think, the Oilers as a team, when I look at the softness of that, it's not about not having someone that's willing to stand up for McDavid. Because I think every single guy in that room, like if
they're not, get out of here. Right?
And if it was flipped, like let's say Garland didn't hold McDavid, but cross-checked McDavid, like in the face, all bets should have been off or would have been off. And you would have had guys that jumped in there. You would have, like, Evan Bouchard would have been in there, like with his gloves off. Like guys would have been in there to defend him in that situation. So that's not really what we're talking about here. And when we talk about team softness or the team not being tough, it's not about having someone on the bench that's going to go fight everybody. That's not what it is. The toughness is more about the being hard to play against, within the rules or borderline on the rules, being able to play physically. And yes, the Oilers, that's not an element that they have to their game. Well, maybe they do a little bit because McDavid, rule breaker, plays in the edge, cross-checks people in the face, right? He might cross that line. So, yes, they edge towards that softer to play against side, but it's not the same as a team when we're looking at it as when we're discussing, the specific and very specific instance of McDavid being held, hooked, interfered with, grabbed. That's different. It's not something you're going to address by bringing in someone that's a bruiser or a modern bruiser, if we want to call him that. It's not. It's just not.
I'd like a little bit more pack mentality at certain instances on the ice where something happens. Like I look at the Zadorov running Skinner. It would have been nice to see 5 guys get and maybe just hover over Zadorov or, push it, give him a stinky glove or something along those lines. Like I look back to the Tampa Bay Lightning. If anyone touched Vasilevsky, it seemed like 5 guys were jumping on that guy. No one was fighting or anything, and the whistle was blowing, but they were showing that they were all together, right? Too many times, I think, when something maybe happens to a certain player, guys are going to the bench and they get to the bench and they look back and they're like, oh, did something happen? You usually know something's going on. We always had the kind of one of the sayings in the dressing room, if one in, all in, right? If something like that happens, you don't want to leave one of your teammates alone while he's getting jumped by 4 other guys on the other team, right? You'd like to see that a little bit more with the Edmonton Oilers, but yeah, like you said, Dusty, they're not completely soft, but they're not.
They're somewhere in the middle, like 25 other teams in the National Hockey League. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think in any way they don't win the Stanley Cup with this lineup because they'd be viewed as soft. No. You know what I mean? Like they are built for a deep Stanley Cup.
No, I got to disagree a tiny little bit there.
Okay. In what element of it? Like what aspect of it? You think?
In the aspect of it of not being able to physically, like let's say Quinn Hughes, just as an example, someone from the division, like being able to over a 7-game series, physically make it so difficult and beat up the other team in a way, in your depth players or with your depth players. I could see that as being not the only factor, because I don't think it would be the number one factor. I think as of right now, as their defense stands, that most likely would be the issue if they don't win a cup. But I could look at it and say it's potential that they don't have enough of an edge to their game. There is a potential for that over a 7-game series, because physicality builds game after game when you're playing the same team over a playoffs. It can be a long playoff run. Like it has an impact. So it could be a reason. I don't want to say it would be the reason, but it could be a reason if they don't win a cup that we could look at and say, there's some potential there that, they weren't able to get the job done because they just didn't have enough, screw you to their game, and guys that play that way through the bottom 6 of the lineup.
Cass, you think you can drag that out to some of those guys that we don't necessarily see it in right now?
No. It's one of those things where it's way easier, in my opinion. Like you can't coach that into players. Very rarely can you coach that into players. Way easier to have a player that crosses the line the other way and you have to rein them in, and consistently rein them in and say, hey, you got to dial this back a little bit. It's very rarely, and I can't even think of a single guy off the top of my head right now, and they exist. I'm sure they do. That it's like they found that all of a sudden in their game where it wasn't there before. Like it's just, if it's not there, it's probably not there.
So I was just like Henrique, Connor Brown, Matthias Janmark. Like they're not that type of guy. Is what you're saying? Like
no. Like
I do think if they're going to add one forward, it's probably the type of guy that you're talking about, Cass. I fully agree with you. I think they could still win it without him, but I totally understand.
Yes, they could.
Yeah.
Oh, they totally could. They could win it without him. I'm not saying it's like an absolute necessary, but I'm also saying it's just as likely that if we're talking about, reasons things didn't work, that could very possibly be a reason.
What's you, Gage? What do you think about that?
I think they. So I'm just thinking about the Quinn Hughes thing, and last year in the playoffs, the Nashville Predators aren't an overly aggressive, big, bruising team, and they targeted Quinn Hughes every chance they got to make sure they finish the checks. I think the Oilers can do that over the course of a series. I mean, you look at the Pietrangelo thing. The reason why he snapped was because every time he touched the puck, he got hit, and it just became too much for him. I think they're, you always say that it's not a switch that you can flip, but just because of the amount of experience that these guys have at that time of year, where playing a 7-game series, you're hard on the other team's skill. I think they do have the ability to be overly physical against other teams' star players to try to limit their time and space and make them uncomfortable every time they're out there.
All right, 780-218-9999, 780-218-9999. You can hit us up over in the nasty chat. The troll says, hasn't Janmark fought before? Yeah, he had, but that's not what Cass is talking about. Cass isn't talking about.
No, I'm not talking about fighting.
Yeah, I'm surprised you would take the conversation going that way, because I don't. That's not what it was. It was a little bit more sandpaper that's going to grind down Quinn Hughes or somebody along those lines on a regular basis.
Yeah,
throughout a playoff series. All right, 780-218-9999. Lots of text messages that we'll sort through. Hey, what do you guys make of some suggestions popping up online that Connor McDavid should boycott the Four Nations because the NHL doesn't officiate him well enough, or he should stop going to NHL events? And I think I know who's kind of the driving force behind this, pushing it out among other people. But to me, that sounds ridiculous, Kaz. And I know Rashad said today that he doesn't get a sense at all that's even remotely crossed the mind of Connor McDavid, which I totally believe, because it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But Cass, where do you come out on that weird theory that popped up?
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, and there's dollar signs associated with that for him, I'm sure, as well. So which is I think a motivator. So I find that unlikely. It's interesting to think about that he could to have that in the toolkit as a threat, but I don't think it's credible yet at this point. I can't imagine that's what he's doing, but you never know. You never know. I mean, I don't think it would be wise necessarily to do. I don't know if that necessarily changes anything if you were. So I don't know. I don't think it's real until he actually does it. I don't know if I can believe it.
I can almost guarantee 99% that thought has never gone through Connor McDavid's mind, where he's going to show the NHL that he needs more protection, so he's not going to go play in a national tournament. That I don't know who would think of, maybe some football player, like soccer player would think that way. Hockey players aren't wired like that. That's one of the most ridiculous comments I have ever heard, that you would do something and limit yourself from going and competing in a tournament like this because you're tired of guys hooking and slashing you. It's crazy.
Tango is in and says he should boycott the Four Nations because he could get hurt. I mean, there's always the threat of that. Well, I mean, but all the best players from those four countries have the possibility of getting hurt.
I mean, if you look on the bright side of this, Connor McDavid gets 3 games rest here. This is
an extra week.
Yeah, this is great. Actually, I'd fly him to down south. Well, maybe not down south.
You're right. They're in a good spot. McDavid's going to get 3 less games wear and tear on his body here. Probably come back with, if it's possible to have more of a fire lit under his ass. I don't know if it is when you're as good and as dominant as he is, but if he does, and this is not the end of the world here. Like this.
No.
Yeah.
And I mean, when he was injured, one of the best things to happen was the emergence of Leon Draisaitl to get out to the start that he had and establish himself as the. And certain nights he's the best player on the Edmonton Oilers, and that's a team with Connor McDavid. Like, look to Leon to just take over one of these games, right? I like it. I like it. I like the fact that Connor's getting some rest in this time during the regular season where the motivator can be, I don't want to say unplugged, but maybe isn't working as well as it usually is from the beginning of the year and closer to the end in playoffs.
All right, 780-218-9999, 780-218-9999. Tommy Gazzola in the chat says, guys, I asked around about that at the rink today, and I got a lot of eye rolls on the McDavid.
Not surprising.
Yeah, no, it's like
it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, just say it out loud. It sounds ridiculous. I'm not going because the refs are not calling they're not protecting.
Like whoever even came up with this theories, like so because. And he should draw more penalties. Like, let's be honest. We just talked about it off the top. Like, there should be more hooks and holds and trips called against guys defending Connor McDavid. I mean, nobody's denying that. But can you imagine Connor McDavid passing up a chance to play in a Canadian jersey with Sidney Crosby because he's not happy because there's not enough hooks? Like, what are we doing here?
When he hasn't played in one of these yet.
Well, yeah, and when he's the guy who's getting suspended for cross-checking somebody in the face. You know, like, it's almost like that's why it's got to, like, if it was the other way around and McDavid got cross-checked in the face and Garland got a fine or a game, then I understand, like, the outrage on, like, you need to protect. That's where we're talking about physically protecting guys, right? Like, I almost view it flipped. Like, but you can't let your star players get abused in that way.
I don't want to talk about the Department of Player Safety that much, but it's ridiculous. So if Connor hadn't done anything, like his whole career, no suspensions, nothing, and he would go up to Conor Garland, cross-check him right in the face, he would have got a fine? It's his first time. It's
first time.
$5,000.
I would think, yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Just that should be every day, 3 games, cross-checking a guy in the face.
Just straight up. You cross-check somebody in the face, regardless of history, it's 3 games.
I don't care if you've been in the league for 1,500 games and you've won the Lady Bing every single year. You go and cross-check that guy in the face, you're gone for 3 games.
Okay, and what if you cross-check a guy in the face the next year again? Is it 5 games in?
Yes.
So it's just like, we put that in. 3 games versus second offense, 5 games, third offense, 8 games.
And I don't understand again, I'm harping on that Kempe slew foot. That was so dangerous. That was an intent to injure a guy. And it's a fine? Like, whatever.
All right. Keep the text messages rolling in. 780-218-9999. Guys, it irks me that they call the ticky-tacky stuff, example, stick in the hands, but then turn a blind eye for the most part on cross-check, slashing, and interference. The game management that they officiate a game to instead of calling the rule book needs to be addressed. And I think, I hope that's what comes out of this conversation. Like, I don't know if that's how it's being pushed around.
Well, remember last year when they had the cross-checking, like it was being called almost a few times a game. And where is that this year? It's completely gone, right? And there's just no consistency. And it varies from ref to ref. Like, I believe it was Tommy Gazzola talking about how a lot of teams have the refs' pictures and names on the bench so players can kind of, okay, it's that guy. I know his name and they can talk to him. I can see it from that respect, but there's certain ways that you have to approach refs because they're all different, which shouldn't be the case at all. They should all be exactly the same, no matter what. They should just be the number that they were. Hey, 56. What's going on, right?
So what you're telling me is you want AI refs?
Well,
I mean, if we can have it, yeah.
They might do a good job. Try it preseason next year.
What's interesting, and we may have talked about this years ago, is my grandfather, who played hockey. He was always an advocate of getting one less official on the ice and having an official off the ice.
Even back then, eh?
Well, it was the entire time I played, pretty much all the time he'd tell me up until he passed was that. He was just like, listen, like it would create more space. It would create more offense on the ice. You'd have less refs in the way and you'd get more calls right by having a guy off the ice that is making those calls. So yeah. I mean, I don't want to dig into that, but it's an interesting thought.
Yeah, we talked about that. Linesmen are basically just puck droppers. You can't tell me the refs can't do that too. I mean, and offsides are an absolute joke. They're just, if it's anywhere close, they're letting it go and then deciding afterwards. So,
all right, 780-218-9999, 780-218-9999 is where you can get to. Cass, if it was up to you, what would your top six look like tonight with Connor McDavid out of the lineup?
Ooh.
Does Jeff Skinner finally find his way back in your opinion?
That would be nice, wouldn't it? Because you're probably going, Let me chew on that a minute.
Would you leave the Draisaitl line together?
They've been really good, so I think you kind of have to.
It was an optional skate this morning, so we don't have any answers.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea. I would be on board with letting Skinner have an opportunity there without McDavid on the line, giving him a little bit more on the puck touch side in the offensive zone. Let me chew on that.
Gage, what do you think?
I think he starts there. I think Skinner starts with Nuge and Hyman, and then
Almog takes him off the line.
And then he takes him off and puts Kappen in there. And then, that's how it starts.
Oh, that would suck for Skinner. You get that opportunity, and 10 minutes in, Kappen's in your spot.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably what's going to happen because the second and third lines, so Draisaitl, Podkolzin, and Arvidsson, that stays together because they're going well, and the Janmark, Henrique, and Brown, they've been good as well. I think Cass went dark.
Oh, Cass, where you went from being lit by the sun
oh my God.
to being, but you're still there, aren't you, Cass?
Is it an eclipse?
I'm still here. I don't know what.
We can still. There you are. What happened there, buddy?
Camera turned off all of a sudden.
That's weird.
I don't know.
I would use it as
that is weird.
Not one last look, but a good let's see what Skinner can do in the top six.
Yeah,
I would probably do that. I could see them going Connor Brown.
Yeah,
I could see them going Connor Brown. What do you think, Cass?
Maybe, but I like that third line.
You like that the way it is right now, yeah.
I like it the way it is, but Brown has been pretty consistent. He's been pretty good this year, so that's a possibility as well. If they don't do Skinner, I think they probably try Brown there to see if there's anything. But I'd be on board. I think that kind of settles it for me. Just thinking this through, I think we see Skinner, Hopkins, and Hyman. I think that's what they go with.
Yeah, I think he'll start there. He'll definitely start there.
GCL Diesel pregame show will get going at 6:00 tonight, right here on Edmonton Sports Talk with Tommy Gazzola, who's down at the rink today for the optional skate. And we'll have you covered, getting you set for the hockey game tonight as the Edmonton Oilers take on the Washington Capitals. Lots of text messages rolling in, lots of chats over there as well. If you're watching over on YouTube today, hammer the thumbs up for us. Anytime you pop in on Two Guys, that would be great. We do have EST afternoons coming up. That'll be happening at 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock today. And then the Reed Wilkins show taking you through the afternoon, 3 to 6. What's coming up on EST afternoons there, Gage? What do you have?
We'll dive a little bit into Ovi and the Caps as McDavid goes on hiatus for a week. Ethan Cadeau from Momental Sports Network. We'll talk with him. Heat and Smoke's coming up. And then, of course, just set up Reed's show.
All right, let's get into Hire It or Fire It for GS Construction. Setting the industry standard for 50 years with quality, efficiency, and safety driving their success. GS Construction has a foundation built on teamwork, and now they want you to become a part of the team. Visit www.gsconstruction.ca and click Ready to Work, or visit their page at Indeed.ca. And with the Next Up Person program at GS Construction, it's not just a job, it can be a career. All right, even if Ovechkin doesn't catch Gretzky, he's still the greatest scorer of all time. Hire it or fire it?
Hire it. This record be demolished without I've said it tons of times, without lockouts. He's the greatest goal scorer that the game has ever seen. It's only a matter of time before he blows this out of the water. I think he gets it done this year.
Does he need the record, Cass?
Yep.
Yeah. You think he needs a record?
No.
Oh.
No, he doesn't. I agree completely with you, Gager. Like he is the greatest goal scorer of all time. Modern era, doing it consistently with the amount of lockouts and missed time, he would probably already have it, most likely. So yeah,
he'd have 1,000.
I can't remember which is which.
Yeah, actually, he would be over 1,000 goals by now.
Yeah, higher it. He is the greatest scorer of all time.
Excited to see him tonight. Taking Marshall to his first game in a few years. It's going to be, we're going, so here's the plan. We're going to, I surprised him with the tickets. Got him at Fans First, fansfirst.ca. Buy fans, for fans, no fees. Very simple process. So we're driving yesterday to basketball, and we were listening to the Reed Wilkins show right when the suspension came out. And he's like, oh, McDavid. We didn't know he was going to the game yet.
Oh.
And I was just like, so I said to him, I guess we won't get to see him tomorrow. I guess we'll just have to watch Ovi. And he goes, what? I said, yeah, I guess, what time do you think we should get to the rink tomorrow? He goes, what do you mean? I said, I got us tickets. We're going to see Ovechkin tomorrow night. He's like, no, hello. He was so he's fired out. So we're having a little daddy and son night, and we're gonna go check out the game tonight. So he's very excited for it. It's like tickets are expensive, man. Like, we don't get out to many games. Like to take a family. Tammy and the Muzz were thinking of coming, but Elizabeth's 7. We didn't want to keep her up to like 10:30 on a school night, so we decided not to. But like it's pricey if you want to take 4 people to a game. And we don't have to tell fans this, but like, there's a reason like my family doesn't go very often because it's somewhere between $600 and $1,000 to go to a hockey game.
And you can't just throw Marshall in the baby Bjorn and go up to the press box anymore.
No, well, Marshall's hit the age now. We're going to Disneyland again this spring, and he'll be 10. And now, like, that's an adult ticket at Disneyland. I was like, damn it, man! Like, you're already 10. Like, what's going on here? So very excited to see Ovi tonight, and I'm hoping we get somebody in the Nasty Chat earlier said. Dueling hat tricks for Draisaitl and Ovi tonight. Hey, would that not be a good time? I think that would be good.
Be great.
All right, let's follow it up with this. Hired or fired. Even if we go for dinner tonight before the game, Marshall can still have a hot dog at the game.
Hire it.
Yeah.
Hire it.
Even if we have dinner like across the street, then walk over to the rink, still get him a hot dog?
If he wants a hot dog, if he wants one, get him. Like, don't force feed it to him. But if he wants one, get him one.
Can you imagine that? Eat this hot dog. We're at the game, son.
You will enjoy it.
That's funny. But yeah, no, we're going to oh damn, I didn't book it. Hopefully you can still get in. The drop in Stick and Pocket River Cree.
Oh.
And then we're gonna go for dinner and then we're gonna go to the game. But I totally forgot to book it, so we might not have spots in that Stick and Pocket. Oops. I'll have to call after. Gager, eat the hot dog?
Yeah. Just don't be.
Can't say no. I know he's gonna ask for a hot dog and popcorn after having dinner, and I'm like, I don't know, buddy.
That's another $300.
That's why you gotta go light on dinner. Just go light on dinner.
Just go light on dinner. That's a good point. We could just go light on dinner.
Just go light on dinner.
Yeah. Smart thinking. Man, Cass, you must be a dad too, hey? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's because I took my 7-year-old to that Vegas game that was an afternoon one for the same reason. You don't want to take the Muzz. Like, I don't want
too late for her.
Sleep. I'm like, no, we are staying the whole game. And that was what we did too. The same thing where it's like, hey, we're not going to eat a ton before because you're going to want the popcorn. You're going to want all the snacks. You're going to want all the treats and everything. So we're going to ease it in before, and then you can, eat till your heart's content at the game.
I think we probably skip over this question, but this Oilers team would be better with Ryan Reeves in the lineup. Hired or fired?
Fire it. He's useless.
See Jack-Eye pop him the other day?
I mean, that's not the type of toughness again you need. Like,
no, that's not the guy you're saying that you have to go out and get, right, Cass?
No.
Yeah. No, you need someone that's just hard-nosed, hard to play against all the time, but not just running everybody on the ice. That's not what you need.
All right. If the Oilers, this was a hot take I had on Oil Stream on Friday. Now, with that being said, I had one Belgian moon before this take, but if the Oilers make the Stanley Cup final, they will roll over whoever comes out of the East this year. Hired or fired?
Fire it. There's no way. It's too close. This league is. Other teams are far too good. I mean, look at the Capitals.
Like we'll see tonight, Aaron. Yeah, let's see how it is
tonight. They're the
best
best team in the National Hockey League. And we know how good all those other teams are, too.
I just have the sense that if they can get through the West, and this is a tough road. I don't know. I just feel like whoever they face out of the East is going to be 4 or 5 games. They're just going to take her down.
Really?
Like McDavid's not going to let this thing go to a 7th game again, because you know what happens in a 7th game. Like, and they know how hard they had to work to come out of that 3-0 deficit last year. Like this time, just crank it up from that point and get her done early. But like I said, hot take, and I had 1 beer prior to it. Cass, hired or fired?
Yeah, that one. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I got to fire it. I can't say they roll over. Like, I mean, I don't know if Washington makes it. I know they're the best team in the league right now. I don't know if they make it. I would lean more towards Carolina or potentially Toronto. And those teams Carolina in particular, they're not an easy out to me. Like that's going to be a tough series if that's who it ends up being. So I think the West is much better than the East this year, but I just can't see them just dominating.
Maybe that's where my take initiates from.
I got to fire it.
Yeah.
I think the West is just better than the East this year. And if you come through it, you're going
to. Yeah. If you can get through there and not be banged up.
All right. And let's go to this one. And I know maybe we tie this into the game on Thursday when the Canucks are in town, and maybe it'll be a little bit different story. But with the spotlight being on the McDavid suspension and he's not playing tonight, there will be at least 8 power plays in this hockey game tonight. Hire it or fire it. Between the two teams combined.
Hire it. There's 10. Yeah.
You know, initially I did have 10 written down, but I lowered it to 8 because I thought it was too high.
I'll hire it too. There's going to be a lot.
Because of course there's more penalties tonight than there are other nights.
Yeah.
No, they'll just call.
No, it'll be the exact same
exactly.
game. It'll just be a parade to the penalty box because of what happened, right? So.
Okay, but what about, like, Myers and McDavid are both suspended. They weren't head-to-head in the incident. But what do you guys think about this game and we'll set it up on Thursday, I guess. But are you thinking fireworks against the Canucks because of the way the last game ended, or?
Yeah, there's going to be way more emotion, I think, in that game. It started to build last season through the playoffs. I think it's going. I would say the Vancouver Canucks are the Edmonton Oilers' biggest rival right now. Right, like this is there's a lot of bad blood. There's some hate between these two teams, which is great. Yeah, there's going to be a few sparklers and bangs.
What do you think, Cass?
Yeah, I think there could be, but I think we see 12 penalties that night. So,
oh yeah, the refs will just call everything right off the hop.
Oh yeah, I think that takes most of that mojo out until the very end of the game. Then we see fireworks.
Tango says Canucks game will have a lot of penalties, but not tonight. And Penner's Pancake says this is the last meeting against the Canucks till potentially the playoffs. That would be a heated series. If I don't know if the Canucks are gonna get there, but they're certainly in a fight with the spot. And there's not a ton of teams trying to track them down, unlike in the East, where there's a weird race there with 6, 7, 8 teams sort of still in the mix for that final couple of playoff spots out there as well. All right, that's pretty much going to do it for Two Guys and a Goalie today. What an interesting conversation. Like, here we are. Connor McDavid suspended 3 games. Ovi's in town. What did you think of Ovechkin getting to take the Gretzky gloves out of the Oilers Hall of Fame and try them on?
Did he?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
What'd you think?
Yeah.
Is that a pass or a fail there?
That's like touching the Stanley Cup.
Pass.
You're okay with it, Cass?
Yeah.
Do you think Ovi jinxes himself and gets hurt and doesn't break the record because he put the gloves on?
Yes.
Oh, man.
No.
You don't do that.
I was okay with it. I thought it was cool.
That's a pass. That's a pass to me. That's fine. That's
I don't
fine.
know.
Let him, I'm fine with it.
I did see some people on Twitter. Now it's Twitter's a bad place to, but I did see some people who are like, this is unacceptable. Like, why would you allow Ovi to do this?
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Well, there's some haters out there that don't want to see him do this, right? Like,
yeah.
And I understand it, but again, it would have been broken already.
I'm a fan of witnessing history.
Yeah.
You know, let's see it.
And he's been, like, I was watching a thing of him scoring and they showed all his goals. He is so happy every time he scores. It's awesome to see that much excitement every time. And it's going to be tough. If Stuart Skinner, like, he robbed him at least 6 times last year here. It was ridiculous. Ovi should have had 4 goals that game. It's pretty funny to watch. Watch when they are on the power play and guys change, Dusty. he's not even looking at the bench.
The Oilers got a few of those too.
Yeah, I know.
A lot of power play time tonight for a few guys.
He does his area where he covers isn't that big, so it's way more noticeable. At least Connor's flying around.
Yeah. Ovi's just like,
okay, here, back to that.
There. Hey, it's worked for almost 20 years, man.
I guess so.
No reason to change it. All right, that's going to do it for Two Guys and a Goalie today, presented to you by GS Construction. If you are looking for a job or you have a job, but you're looking for a better one, GS Construction, hiring now. Take your career to the next level. Join the team at GS Construction. Visit their website at gsconstruction.ca or check out their page on Indeed.ca. And with the Next Up Person program at GS Construction, it's not just a job, it is a career. For Matt Kassian, Joaquin Gage, I'm Dustin Nielson. I'll talk to you tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock. Gager and Hernan Salas up next with EST afternoons from 1 to 3 here on TuneIn, iHeart, EdmontonSportsTalk.com, and of course over on YouTube as well. Turn on autoplay. Enjoy the game tonight. Should be a good one. Looking forward to breaking it down tomorrow.